So first we're going to take this apart. Alright, and then we can probably just pull on the output shafts to get these apart. Maybe not. Might have to pry these open, maybe? Usually I'd be more careful, but this differential housing is dead anyway, so I don't really care if we, oh, there we go. I don't really care if we tear it up. So that's the two pieces. So those little gears in there, those are the gears I was talking about that we're going to need to reuse. Now we're just going to push these out. I put the old pieces over here out of frame, the pieces that we're not going to use. So we'll reuse that. We're not going to reuse these screws. I put them out of frame. And then everything else comes apart like this. So that grease that I put in there is pretty heavy. Like I said, it's 100K. So, I mean, these things are fairly sticky. So I'm going to use my needle nose pliers to pull those little shafts out, which the new one comes with shafts. So we're not going to reuse those shafts. We're just going to reuse the gears. Everything should pull right out like this. You know, this is the gear with a little internal shaft. We're going to reuse the gear, not the shaft. Same thing with this one. Obviously, you want to inspect these gears just to make sure that they are that they're in good shape. This is the old housing that we're not going to be using anymore. Again, this gear on this housing that doesn't come apart. That's pressed together from the factory. So that's why I had to buy a whole new housing. And I figured if I was going to buy a whole new housing, I might as well buy a sealed housing to keep the grease in there. Otherwise, we just have to, you know, we'll be taking it apart all the time and put new grease in it. So while we're in here, obviously we want to check the condition of all of these gears. It's unlikely that these gears get damaged because they don't really take any load. The only time these gears actually spin is when you're turning. So when one of the back wheels is turning faster than the other when you're turning. That's the whole purpose of a differential. So I'm just gonna wipe these off a little bit. They don't need to be super clean. Someone would probably argue that they do, but it's whatever. Again, I'm not a racer, I'm a basher. There is a little tiny pin in here. The new kit does not come with that, so you're definitely going to want to keep that. That essentially goes between the two output shafts. So I'm not going to go into the detail of how a differential works. That's another conversation for another video, and the truth is there's probably videos out there that explain it better than I could. But basically what it does is, if you didn't have one there, your back wheels would not be able to turn in at different speeds. So the whole purpose of these is to allow the two back wheels to turn at different speeds. So the thickness of your grease determines how much work the differential is allowed to do. The thinner the grease, the more free the differential is. So it's going to let the back wheels spin at different speeds more freely. The thicker the grease, it's not going to let them spin at different directions as freely. It really depends on what you're looking for. In this particular application, I mean, this is for a kind of a high speed street basher. I don't really care about turning this thing. I want it to be good at one thing, and that's going really fast in a straight line. So I don't care about the differential. I mean, the truth is, I could lock this differential. They do have those kind of things where it essentially spools the differential and gets rid of all these gears in here and does not allow it at all. But that's going to make it really hard to turn. It's always going to want to go straight. So first thing we're going to want to do, we're going to grab the deeper of the two cups. Now the way this works, it's a 3-piece deal. So you know, that's how it's going to go together. But the deepest one, that's where we're going to sort of build everything up, and then we'll assemble it together at the end. So there's going to be these 4 pins. They'll go in these 4 holes like so. They should just slip right in. Like that. And then we're going to go ahead and put one of our output shafts in here. I'm going to put this tiny little center pin in this output shaft. Now, part of the reason, you know, this thing is sealed, we have, you know, part of the you know, not the reason it's sealed, but the way it seals is there's 2 sets of seals that we have to put in place. There's the outer seals. I don't know if you can see them on the video. They're clear or white plastic, so they'll seal up the differential. And then there's these O-rings that will go on the output shafts. So we're going to slide the O-ring on, and then the output shaft goes in there like so. So that's how that should look. So that's one of our output shafts. Center pin for the output shaft. When the other output shaft goes in, it'll go on that pin. And then I've always called these spider gears. I don't know, in a vehicle differential, they tend to be called spider gears. Not sure what they're called in this case, but I'm gonna put all 4 of those in. They're all 4 the same, so you don't have to worry about which one goes where. But those just go on the 4 shafts that we installed earlier. Just like that. So then, the next thing that would go on is this output gear, but we need to put our seal on first. So we're going to put that right there. Just set it right on that surface there. And then the outer gear, and I don't think it matters which way that goes. Doesn't appear to be any different. So I'm just going to want to try to get that seal lined up, which is going to somewhat painful. Getting that lined up and keeping it lined up for the duration of the assembly here. Okay, so it would appear the easier thing to do is put the seal on the gear first and then put the gear onto the differential housing. So let's see how we do with that. So we got the seal on there. The seal keeps wanting to creep up. I'm wondering if I put a little bit of oil on there, it'll stick, or maybe I just stick it on here and let it level out, or let it flatten out that way. Because my guess is we don't want any wrinkles in it. If we have wrinkles in it, that's going to obviously cause us problems. So we're going to go ahead and put the other one on there. Just push it backwards with your heel. There you go. All right, so I'm fairly confident that that side of the seal is good to go. Now getting this side on is the next challenge. So I got this little tiny screwdriver here, kind of using that to line things up. Kind of get it tucked down in there. Easier said than done. Kind of just got to work your way around until it's mostly flat. And once we put the cap on, it'll be flat. So it should look something like that. All right, so the next step is we're gonna fill it with oil. All right, so this is what we're gonna be using. Traxxas 100K diff lube. I've been calling it oil. Sometimes I call it grease. I don't know what the correct terminology for it is, but diff fluid. Let's go with that, diff fluid. All right. So what you're gonna wanna do is this stuff is really thick. This is, I mean, it's super thick. And you just wanna pour it in there. So what I like to do is put a little bit in there and then see if you can spin this output shaft. The output shaft should spin, and mine is not for some reason. So before we get too much deeper into this process, I want to figure out why it's not spinning. Because if we reassemble this whole thing and we can't rotate that, then we're going to have to take it all back apart. So I'm going to put this on here.
A few moments later.
There we go. You should be able to spin it like that. And you can hear that noise it's making is because the that diff fluid. So that's normal. I'm going to put this axle shaft back on here so I can spin it a little bit easier. Oh no, it's trying to take my seal with it. We'll take that off for now. So just trying to get all that fluid worked in there. I'll put some more fluid in there. And we got our diff fluid in there. All right. We'll probably put a little bit more Ideally, you'd want it to be full, but not overfilled. All right, so we got the diff fluid in there. We're gonna put this seal on now. And it actually might be easier now that we have the fluid in there, because the fluid is gonna help hold that seal in place while we're finishing the assembly of the differential housing. So what I'm doing is just lining up those 4 holes. 1, 2, 3, 4. Those are the screw holes that hold it together. Obviously, I want to try to get all the wrinkles out that I can and make sure those are lined up so that when we do put it back together and we insert those screws, the screws aren't grabbing onto the edge of the seal, because that's going to cause it to wrinkle up and not behave properly. All right, so the last step, oh, hang on, we're not at the last step yet. We have to put the other output shaft on. That's gonna go in here like so. So watch what happens when I'm rotating one side of the output shaft one direction, that other shaft spins the other direction. So that's the purpose of this whole thing, is to allow those 2 output shafts, which ultimately connect to the 2 rear wheels, to be able to spin in opposite, or not necessarily spin in opposite directions. They're spinning in opposite directions relative to the differential itself, but relative to the car, they're spinning at different speeds. Obviously, both the back wheels are spinning forward, but when you turn, the inside wheel is going to turn at a lower RPM than the outside, and this is what allows it to do that. So we need this other seal on here. Again, the whole idea is to keep this thing sealed so that our differential fluid doesn't leak out over time. And then this guy, pretty sure can only go on one way. No, it can go on 2 ways. All right, so you see how those 4 pins, there's 2 at a higher level and 2 at a lower level. If we look at this, it has the holes that those pins go into, the holes that receive those pins. There's 2 that have a higher boss and 2 that don't have a boss. So you're going to line them up in such a way that, actually it's not going to matter. Sorry, I'm confusing myself here. Yeah, it's not going to matter. They only fit on one of 2 ways. Yeah. So kind of rotated that until it lined up, and it's still not really wanting to line up. I might have to, there we go.
A few moments later.
All right, so I got it back together. Wasn't easy. It was really a pain. This differential housing that I ordered off Amazon, I suspect that in true get what you pay for form, we have some issues with tolerances in there, and I think down the road I'm gonna have more trouble with this differential. Basically, those 2 sets of little gears are supposed to be positioned in such a way, this way within the differential, that they don't lock the differential in place. If when you're putting it together, it should position them properly. But if you allow them to go too far down, then it'll actually lock the differential and it won't spin at all. So we'll see how this goes. Like I said, I don't have high hopes. I think I'm gonna have trouble with this. And if I do, then, like I said, this was the cheapo off Amazon. I want to say it was like 14 bucks. Hot Racing makes one. Hot Racing is a brand that makes, in my experience, pretty good components. this doesn't work, I will return it and bite the bullet and spend $30 on the hot racing one, which is probably what I should have done in the first place, but that's neither here nor there.